Yo, what's up? It's Nick Cannon, and when I'm in Charlotte, I'm watching the Chocolate Box.
Good evening and welcome to another fascinating episode of the Chocolate Box Presents. I'm your host, Chocolate Drop, and as usual, you're in for a fascinating program. Oh, it's going to get real good tonight because we're going to talk about a subject that has been percolating in my mind for quite some time, and now I've been fortunate enough to bring four fantastic guests, and they're going to join in the discussion on dating after divorce. Woo! So, welcome to the program. My first guest is Sandisoa Nungauza.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
And Rupert Thomas. Aha, you know, we're going to go to another one. All right, and Sabrina Stallion and Nathaniel Sturdivant. Welcome you all to the program.
Thank you.
All right. I wanted to say thank you all for coming because there are so many people who would not want to come in front of a camera to talk about what we're going to talk about. So let's just deal with it. Let's just dig in. You all have been married at one point, right?
Yes.
Or 2 points.
Or you did a couple of times.
Yep.
Right? Okay. If you were to give some advice to someone who's contemplating marriage, give me just two things that you would say were deal breakers. You don't have to get too personal if you don't want to, but two things that are deal breakers, and a person needs to know about these things before they enter this holy matrimony. Who wants some of that?
You got to love yourself first.
First of all, love yourself.
Right.
Okay.
I think that you definitely have to have God in the mix. I think if as long as you're putting your God first, then I think that definitely you can everything else can fall into place.
Okay. And back in my previous year, I did videotaped a lot of weddings, and that's always comes up.
Right.
A cheater, poor sex, and no money.
Okay, you did an extra. She threw a bonus in there. A cheater, poor sex, and no money. All right.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, it's got to be good. You
Deal
want to weigh in on
breaker.
this?
Someone who's disrespectful. That's a deal breaker.
A disrespectful. Okay. Well, how would you say disrespect? Like cheater? Is that considered disrespect?
Well, verbally.
Verbally abusive?
Disrespectful. I wouldn't say abusive. There's a difference. You don't have to be abusive to be disrespectful.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about before marriage.
Well,
Was that your question?
Yeah, that was
Deal
the question.
breaker.
But still, I mean, put it out there.
So what's your question?
Well, I got a part two there. Go ahead. What do you want to add?
Well, I thought you were talking about our attitude before marriage.
Yes. What kind of advice would you give someone who's contemplating marriage, and based on your having been married, what are some lessons they say? Well, look, you can't deal with a cheater. You can't deal with anybody who's disrespectful.
Well, after so many years of being divorced, I would say that to lose that ego is very important before marriage.
Okay.
And love
Hence
yourself.
You saying know yourself first. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you one of the most important things for me is like being friends. Like I really think that that's important because most of the relationships I've ever entered before, we weren't friends first. We saw each other, we liked each other, we started dealing with one another, but we just weren't good friends. And I think friends at the base is the most important thing. So when the hard time comes, you can still say, look, this is my friend. And I think you can it'll help you to get through some of the hard times because you know this person's heart.
Even if, so you're saying that being friends alone, what if I'm broke? The sex is horrible. Not that sex is everything. I don't want to set a bad example, but the chemistry definitely has to be there. Because...
Well, I don't think it's friendship alone.
Okay.
I just think that's a great part of it. Like if it's baking a cake, that's the flour. You need the eggs, you need the other ingredients, but I think friendship is extremely important.
Yeah,
so Sabrina, it's almost like you're saying, so you can kind of marry somebody and not really be friends with them? Or you?
Well,
if the sex is good?
Perhaps, honestly, as long as I like my space.
Okay.
And I've had a combination of great finances. I've had, great sex. I have had the money. It's just the chemistry. I can be friends. Most people I date, I'm friends with. I like to think that we're friends.
And how are we saying date? How are you? We got to get clear.
Date?
Both.
Go out with on a steady basis.
Okay, but no intimacy.
Well,
let's hold on. How are we using the word date? Does date automatically denotes intimacy, or date means it could be strictly platonic, no sex at all.
It can be strictly platonic.
Are we in agreement on that? That dating?
I think it's whatever you and that person agree on.
Absolutely.
They're
I
different
think it can be,
sequences.
but I think that when you start dating someone, from a female perspective, that the male at some point is expecting that it's going to move into that if it's a ongoing dating, process. So that's where I differ. Is I don't like to date because I feel like if I don't tell you up front that I'm not interested in it going right there, where it might be different for someone else who wants to get intimate, they don't mind getting intimate. When you said dating after a divorce, to me, a divorce meant you're at least a little bit older. So I'm in that age category where I just look at dating totally different. So if you're going to ongoing date, yes, that could mean some people we're going to be intimate, but for me, I look at dating so different that I don't want to even put that on the table at this time because I'm looking for that friendship at this age. But when I was in my 20s,
maybe I just
another
haven't fully
story.
grown up yet. No, I'm just kidding. I am.
So what's the long term? I mean, like you said, I think with Steve Harvey that has this 90-day thing. If we're going to roll with the word dating, is 90 days a significant amount of time before you get intimate? And when I say intimacy, I'm talking about sexually intimate. Is 90 days, or is it the first day, is the first week, or is it 6 months?
I think it depends on your friendship, compatibility, and your communication. Absolutely. You got to communicate, you got to talk and see where the other person is. And if you're compatible and you're friends, then you make that decision yourself, regardless of the time.
What is your intention?
I'm not going to sleep until I actually see blood work.
You know,
you have to. I have children, so in order to sleep with someone, you have to show me paperwork. You have to show me your STD workup. If you're not willing to show paperwork, then it's not going to happen.
That's a good point.
As much as I love intimacy, it's not going to happen because I have 2 children from my first marriage, and I can't think of being stuck with something that wouldn't allow me to be here for them. So I'd have to say no paperwork.
What is that? No finance, no romance.
Yeah, absolutely, and finance is another thing.
And we're gonna get to that too.
So wait, once he shows paperwork once
on health, on health,
something that's an ongoing thing.
We have to do it together. It's not a once thing. When we decide to do it, we're going down there together.
But that's gonna be kind of awkward, right? Oh, you say because you want to actually go and get the test done, not
together.
Produce the paperwork.
We're gonna get it done together, and we're gonna get our results together. And I'm a person, I've got years of history of that, and I have no problem showing anyone I did.
Yeah, but if that's old paperwork, they may say,
it's not old paperwork. Okay. We do it together.
Okay.
There's a question I would have.
We do it together.
My question is, what is a deal breaker in a dating situation? What's a deal breaker for you? What do you say that, okay, I can't deal with this at all, let's just...
Like a smoker or a cheater or a long-distance relationship.
A liar.
With children or with pets that come in the kitchen and sleep in the bed with...
non-communicator.
Oh, non-communicator. They don't want to talk.
And a liar.
A liar.
Dating son. I've dated, moving from this city and moving to another city, I've dated people that have looked good on the outside and painted a good picture verbally.
The representative.
Oh, definitely the representative. But they were a big liar about who they were.
Okay.
They had high expectations for me, but everything they told me about them was a complete lie.
Get out.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Well, I've been a representative, so I can't weigh in on that.
I think we've all been.
So what did your representative look like? Put that out there.
Very cordial, loving, sweet. Then,
And then you entered the relationship
and it
part.
was... But that's part of what you were saying when you find chemistry with someone. You can't help but the representative show up when the chemistry is there, especially, And then once the chemistry wears off and the honeymoon's over, then the representative is like, I'm quitting.
And you stuck with them.
Yeah.
I'm quitting. Mm-hmm. So deal breakers would be not giving someone who doesn't want to take time for us to get to know each other. Mm-hmm. I feel like people come to you and show you yourself when you react to their lies or what have you. They're just helping you grow. But you don't have to be with that person, but you didn't give it enough time for us to actually, because the representative can't stay representing for but so long. They're going to show up.
I mean, sleepover, the hygiene.
What do you
Yeah.
mean representative?
Representative means someone, the face that you see when you're courting someone. It's like the
presidential
first impression they show of themselves because they're trying to impress you.
Then they get in
And
office.
then they get in office.
Then they-
It's who they really
They
are.
get the job.
got you.
And
I like
they
the
start
job
acting
the job
up.
applicant.
Yeah.
You're applying for the job, then you get the job, then you don't
Right.
show up.
Yeah,
to work.
yeah.
You got the job now.
So
That's
how do you break down that facade of a representative? There's a way to break it down.
It's like you're saying you got to get to know each other.
Yeah.
In my
Get to know
opinion,
each
is
other.
give it time because don't make any, because we tend to make definitive decisions. We sleep with them. That's a definitive decision. Now
Yeah.
me and you are like, okay, we done
Yeah.
moved to another level. Then we make other decisions based on how we're feeling about each other at the time. But giving it more time, who knows how long that's going to be. For certain people, it's different. But give it some time because then the representative will go sit down somewhere and you'll see the real, true person, or you'll see glimpses of it.
I like
And
that
women
word,
always know.
representative.
Women,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean-
as women say, I never knew.
Yeah.
You
She
knew.
knew.
No, we knew. It's just
Yeah.
that we chose to stick with the image of the representative.
Oh, what about your spirit? What about when you meet someone and everything looks great, but in your heart you say, "This is not what I'm feeling," but everything looks great.
Go with your heart.
There you go. That's what I say.
If a person shows you who they really are, then you believe them.
Say the first time, right?
Absolutely.
I like that.
We're going to come up on a break shortly, but I did want to see if I could squeeze this question in before we take that break. Someone's in their early 20s and they want to get married. Would you say yay, nay? In their
Early 20s want to
Yeah.
get married?
Yeah.
What's the
Yeah.
situation?
I
Where they
think-
live at? Are they?
Well, I'm just speaking from the fact that you
Nay.
all have been
Absolutely
divorced
not.
at that
Yes.
age.
I would say you need, if you're in your early 20s, I think you need to get yourself together. I think you need to live life, get yourself together financially, kind of develop and figure out who you are as a person. Find yourself.
But I love her.
Understand what
You can still-
marriage is.
Yeah, you can still
still
have a
love 'em.
relationship with her,
But
or
you're
you
not-
can still,
you're not
you can have a
mature.
relationship. But as far as like getting married, I just don't think the
Not right now.
maturity level is there just yet.
Were any
Not
of you
in
all
the early
married
20s.
in your 20s?
No.
Nope. Okay.
Marriage is like a business,
Mm.
and anyone going in should know that. It doesn't necessarily have to be filled with love. Don't necessarily have to be friends. It's not going to work if you don't run it like a business, in my opinion. You
Well,
have to
there are
be
a lot
on the same page, have the same mission, same agenda.
There are a lot of celebrities that will marry and get a trophy wife, or or marry for money. I mean, just for status. So
It's all in what you want.
Mhm.
Some men, with money, they only want someone for one thing. I was married to one guy. He said, "There's only one thing that I had to do. I can't say what that one thing was," but he was.
you say you
very,
can't say what it was, or he couldn't say what that
I
was.
can't say on
Just
the
can't
show.
say it
So
now.
we
what
can
that
kind of
one
assume
thing-
what it is.
But
Okay.
we can think about that for a little
Yeah,
bit.
I mean,
Just let
think
that
about it,
marinate
and
a
it was
little bit.
terrible.
Okay.
Not terrible, but it's not something that a working woman would want to do just to be kept. Not this one.
Well, we don't know what that was, but I tell you what, we're going to take a little pause for the cause to think about it, and we're going to come back. And when we come back, we're going to follow in Justin Timberlake's song title. We're going to talk about sex. All right.
Oh, no.
My name is Chocolate Drop. You are watching the Chocolate Box. We'll be right back after this brief pause for the cause.
Hi, I'm Peebo Bryson, and I'm very proud of my musical collaborations over the years. And today I want to tell you about my collaboration with the U.S. Census Bureau to help ensure a complete and accurate count for the 2020 census. Let me tell you why responding to the census is so important. The data collected from the 2020 census will affect our nation's ability to ensure equal representation and equal access to important governmental and private sector resources for everyone. Census results are used to guide community decision-making, affecting housing, schools, healthcare services, business investments, and much, much more. These functions depend on a fair and accurate census. So when it's time to respond to the census, remember, it's essential that everyone gets counted. Your responses are safe and confidential. To learn more, visit 2020census.gov.
Please have a seat. I'll be honest. Your resume is not what I'm used to.
I know.
Okay, so what would you bring to my company?
What do you need?
I need a hard worker.
Good. I've got 2 part-time jobs and to help my parents pay the bills.
I need problem-solving skills.
I got through high school without a car, a phone, or a computer.
No college degree, though.
Not yet, but Life's taught me a lot, and I'm ready for more.
Well, you're not the typical kind of candidate that I hire. But you are exactly what I'm looking for.
Your company could be missing out on the candidates it needs most. Learn how to find, cultivate, and train a great pool of untapped talent at gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back to the Chocolate Box. I am your host, Chocolate Drop, and we're talking about dating after divorce. I have to my immediate right, Sandiswa Ngauza, and I have Mr. Rupert Thomas. I have Miss Sabrina Stallion, and my illustrious Nubian brother, Nathaniel Sturdivant. Welcome back. As I said, we were going to talk about sex. So, how soon after you start, using your words, dating, should the pressing the flesh, we're just going to get the having sex, making love, whichever euphemism you want to use, how soon? And I want to get a response from each one of you all. Who wants to take it first?
I'll take it first. So I don't think that there's a certain time period that you can really specify. I just think it's based on the two people and the relationship and what you agree on, if there's chemistry. But I think in order to get to that point to where you have sex, that you need to make sure that you have that chemistry. Like, I'm the type of person now that whoever I'm with at this point, it has to be serious going forward. It's not going to just be casual. Now, when I was younger, a different story. But now, I'm at a different point.
For me, again, it's after the test. You have to have your paperwork. We have to do that together in this society. I have to know your history, whether you were
so that could be 6 weeks, that could be 6 months, that could be 6 years.
However long it takes for you to get those tests and those results.
So no timetable.
There's no timetable.
Well, back in the day, we couldn't have sex until after marriage.
And I was going to get to that too, so I want to get a time. So if you want to pass on that question, I'll go to that and say no sex before marriage, because that is definitely So before marriage,
definitely before.
I'm gonna deflect to his answer.
Okay.
It was good.
So there have been people that I've spoken with outside of this panel who said, because of their religious leanings, said no sex before marriage. And after they were married, the sex wasn't, to your point, what they had thought it was going to be. Have you all ever encountered anyone been in a situation like that where they've already said their I do's and they were virgins, young couple? Would you advise someone in that situation to, as you say, get more familiar, because once you're married and it's not what you thought?
What was the question?
I'm so sorry. Again, getting back to the sex before marriage. The sex before marriage. So would you advise a younger person, even though we kind of touched upon this earlier, to abstain?
Wait.
Yes, to totally abstain.
Well,
no.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Yes. And I guess the reason is because you need to kind of know. That's so important in a relationship. You need to know what you're dealing with.
Unless you're both virgins, in my opinion, because people look for different things in sex, and you don't know how compatible you are to that person. And I've known someone that has married at a young age, and they weren't happy with their sex partner because they waited.
And Nathaniel, you have that look on your face like something's not.
Yeah.
Well, what I'm thinking about is once you start dating and you're comfortable with each other, I think you should realize that sex by itself is its own entity, and it can change a lot in a relationship if you're not ready for it. So I would say become friends first, compatible, great communication, and when you want to, then. But if sex comes in before you emotionally mature, it can just blow the whole thing out the water because you're not really ready for it.
Is that from a male perspective or a female perspective?
That's my perspective.
Okay, because
I understand what he's saying, though. He's saying when you get in if we're talking about a serious relationship, you're talking about marriage. So to me, that sounds like it's serious. If you're not in happy with the sex, that's one aspect of your relationship. So
all the other things far away.
You got to look at everything. And he's saying if you're not mature, emotionally mature enough to handle marriage, no, you shouldn't be having marriage, sex, or nothing together because you could ruin that potentially great relationship because the sex wasn't great at the beginning.
The old adage saying throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
And see, the sex part is not the whole marriage. It's just one aspect, but the maturity that it takes to be with someone that, oh, he's not great or she's not great, but everything else we're working towards is way more outweighed and more important. Who knows? But if you just leave it up to that one thing, which was your question,
you'll let somebody good get away.
Exactly, because they might not be good at sex, but you don't. There's different reasons why.
And that's
I'm gonna put it to you like this. Like my take on it.
Go ahead, Rupert.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Okay, my take on it is this. Like, I think that you need to. First of all, we talked about the representative earlier, right? So you can bring everything out in the beginning, and then after you get married, you've been married for 5 years or whatever the case, it starts to wane. So I think most of it really goes into to intimacy. I don't think that the relationship should be predicated on sex, but sex is obviously extremely important in the situation. But somebody could get into a car accident.
Yeah, I was going to
right.
think about
They get into a car accident and they lose their ability to have sex.
Yeah.
You just roll out on them. You see what I'm saying? Do you just leave them? So it's one of those things that sex is. You're going to be having sex probably 3% of the time. You see what I'm saying? So, and I'm talking about when you take a 24-hour day, maybe 5%.
I guess I'm the only one up here that kind of I'm not on board with everyone else.
That's okay.
Because I know people that have married individuals and they were great people, great husbands or great wives, but the sex was lousy and it just didn't work. They ended
up in divorce.
It ended up in divorce, and it should have been divorced a long time ago. Because if I marry someone and I'm not happy in that avenue, it's not going to end up good. That has to work. I have to sit near you and
I think sex is. I want to tell you, I think sex is extremely important. You know what I mean? So I don't want to minimize sex, but if you got into a situation where you with your husband and something happens to him and he can't, then what?
It depends on how nice he's been to me.
Okay, so then it goes.
Right, so you can hire escorts to bring in that side.
You know what? And the husbands I've had, what? They be pushed down the stairs in the wheelchair.
If I can use a friend of mine as an example.
Okay.
I had a friend back in D.C., a firefighter. He was engaged to be married to this lady. He got caught in the fire and was almost killed in the fire. She nursed him back to health before they got married. So he was like disfigured. He was nothing like himself before the fire. But their marriage lasted 40 years.
Yeah, he must have had a really large bank account.
No. Why you say that?
It was those disability checks rolling in.
Now, he was still working. Disability came in as well. Right?
Yeah.
But I'm talking about her devotion to him after having an accident. You were talking about if someone was disfigured. He was
federal check that was rolling in, and then it was probably more because he got injured on the job.
The Anna Nicole Smith.
Could have been she loved him. We can't dismiss that. But I'm saying it could have been that she just genuinely loved him.
So how long? Let's say if you're married. Okay, again, this is titled "Dating After Divorce." So let's say you're married. Now I got a couple other questions I want to try to squeeze in here. So if you're dating and you're married, and you see that it's going south, one of the two have already checked out. How long? And I know it varies. Should you hang in there before you say, all right, I'm out? Is that, a month, a year, 5 years,
Why are you checking out again?
Well, let's say because you realize, we've all been divorced. So at some point we knew that this is a wrap.
Oh, okay.
Did we stay in a relationship? Let me ask it this way. How long did you stay in your marriage before you realized it was over?
Okay.
That's the question.
Okay. About 7 years.
7 years.
7 for the first.
7 for the first.
For the second one, probably checked out maybe 6 months or less.
6 months or less.
I checked out at 5, but I'm
5 years or 5 months?
5 years.
5 years.
But at this point, we're not getting divorced. So whoever I marry, we're gonna work it out.
And that's
we're gonna work it out.
I want to get there.
So at this point in the game, because I've been through divorce, I know what it does. I've seen with my children, my 2 daughters. I've seen how that can impact them, and I've seen how it impacted me and the woman I went. We're still great friends, but my point is that we're not getting divorced at this point. We're going to work it out, but I'll make sure that I marry someone who I feel like has those same values that I do.
Before you go in.
Yeah, because if I feel like they don't, then there's no point.
We can't.
To death do you part.
Pass the representative.
You want to weigh in on that?
I was so into his
Yeah.
question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think you should stay as long as you need to get yourself together.
No, the question was how long before you said you could bail out yours? You were married.
Oh, when did I bail out? Ooh,
Yeah. Before you knew it was over.
That.
Before you knew it was over.
No, it probably was over maybe 3 or 4 years before we parted.
Okay, all right. So now let me piggyback on Rupert's question, which is one that I wanted to ask. Because at this stage, after you've been married and divorced, and you have a certain age, you're probably looking for who you want to ride out in the sunset with. Right? Yeah. So how important is that before you start, when you dating again, say, this person has to meet a certain criteria, and we're up against the clock. Anybody want to jump in on that?
I already said my piece.
I would never marry again. Okay. I don't want to marry again. It's overrated. It's not something that you do unless you're on the same page. You have common goals. You're trying to build something together, home, raise a family. Right now, the only thing I need a man for is probably intimacy and travel. And I don't really need him much for that at 47.
Okay, so you say it's overrated, right?
It's highly
overrated. So you're
overrated.
Okay with friends with benefits, huh?
Friends with benefits, cool. Definitely.
Wow, that blew me away a little bit.
You want to weigh in on that? Clock
engaged. Yeah.
I just think the institution of marriage, to me, is somewhat spiritual.
Sacred.
To me, sacred.
Okay.
And if your mind is in that right place, spiritual place, it can work and it can benefit you in a wonderful way. I don't feel like myself, I don't feel whole unless I'm in a relationship.
Awesome. Nice. Cindy, you're the last one that hasn't weighed in on that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yes, I would think that marriage is a good thing. Mm-hmm. It depends on your experience, your history, and what do you value about that institution. I think it's a good thing.
And I just want to piggyback on your point real quick, Nathaniel. Mm-hmm. I don't want you to think this is just my opinion, okay? But I know you were saying I don't feel whole until I'm in a relationship. I used to feel that way. Mm-hmm. But I'm at the point now where like I am whole within myself. I have to be. Mm-hmm. Because if, God forbid, the relationship doesn't work, then I still have to be okay. And if I'm not whole, then I'm going to be broken. You see what I mean? So
it's kind of like you complete me.
I have to be whole within. That's just being good with myself,
But isn't that taking...
like I want to be able to, if I'm whole, then I can pour it. Go ahead.
Believe it or not, good people, we're at the end of our program.
Oh, my God.
Fast when you're having fun. And I'd like to give all our guests an opportunity to participate in this little ritual we call the eating of the chocolate here on the Chocolate Box, hosted by Chocolate Drop. So I want to thank Mr. Nathaniel Sturdivant, Ms. Sabrina Stallion, Mr. Rupert Thomas, and Ms. Sandiswa Nungauser for appearing on tonight's episode of the Chocolate Box Presents. I'm Chocolate Drop. We'll see you next week, same time, same station.